Our next speaker tonight is Mike Magan, a dairy farmer from County Longford, who's very well known in dairy farming circles. Mike farms in partnership with his son Mick, and he's currently chair of Animal Health Ireland, and also the director of the Agricultural Trust, which, as we all know, publishes the Farmers Journal. He's a past chairman of Lakeland Dairies, AgriAware, and the Irish Holstein Friesian Association. Say that 5 times fast in a row. Mike, I suppose, would like, and he's going to talk to us this evening around it, would like to see industry be more ambitious regarding the eradication of some of the viral infectious diseases to reducing bacterial pathogens affecting animal health in Ireland. So all of this is with the aim of improving the margins for farmers while ensuring antibiotic use is kept at an absolute minimum. As part of Animal Health Awareness Week, which is conjoined with Antimicrobial Resistance Awareness Week, Mike is advocating a very important message, which is key to this week's One Health message in that area, as to why we need to keep our armoury of antimicrobials effective for as long as we can. So I'll hand over to you, Mike, and let you go.
Okay, can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes. The presentation is on the, the slides are down the side. It's not on, oh, there you go, perfect.
Okay, good evening, everybody. I want to share a family experience with regard to AMR, but I'm going to do it through a medium of the kind of work we've been doing for the last while in Animal Health Ireland. Animal Health Ireland has been mentioned a few times last night, and again, particularly by Simon tonight. So I'm going to go to share our experience in Animal Health Ireland in trying to tackle some of the viral loads that farmers have to contend with. But I'm going to do it to come right back to this little man here. This is our son James, and James is the reason why I'm so passionate about this this issue of antimicrobial resistance and trying to drop the use of antibiotics in Ireland today. But I'll come back to him at the end. So Simon already mentioned BVD, and BVD was one of the early diseases that we said we would tackle when Animal Health Ireland was formed. We did a survey of the industry, professionals, and farmers, and BVD ranked very high in both dairy and beef farms. The 0.66 of the animal population having persistently infected calves may not look particularly high, but that equates to 13,000 to 14,000 animals a year that were dying emaciated as BVD. But more importantly, it's a threshold disease, and it can give rise to a lot of other issues among young stock, particularly. And then every time you have sick animals, you've got this tendency or urge to potentially use antibiotics. Equally, it's an economic disease, causes a lot of hardship. So we're nearly there, as Simon showed in his modelling. We're down to 0.03. We had hoped we could move faster, but retention of animals did cause us some problems. But if you see the two maps, you see how the density of persistently infected animals and the wide distribution at the beginning and where we're at now. So we're nearly there. But as I said, it's something that we feel with eradicating some of these viral loads in the national herd, cattle herd, we can ultimately have people potentially using less antibiotics, and that's the objective. But the one area where there's a huge use of antibiotics is in the area of other health in cattle, in dairy cows, in lactating cows. Mastitis. Mastitis has been a scourge. And when we started out on this journey around 2009, the national level of SEC was 272,000. That certainly was causing us some embarrassment on international markets, but particularly causing a lot of issues around the profitability in dairy herds. And we set up CellCheck, an industry-wide collaboration between the veterinary profession, the milking machine technicians, the co-ops that purchase the milk, and the farmers. And we made a concerted effort to deal with this over the next number of years, and we've got it down by 100,000, so which is comparable to any place else in the world. We're sort of plateauing around there, and we feel we need to reboot this. But when you have lower mastitis, you have lower SEC, you have less people using antibiotic tube. As soon as a cow has a problem in the udder, the default position is put in an antibiotic. So we feel that by tackling this and lowering the SEC load, people will definitely inevitably use less antibiotics, and that's been proven by the sales data that we have access to. But as we move in CellCheck, we also now are moving towards a situation whereby prophylactic use of dry cow therapy in cows is going to be, the regulation is going to change from next year on. And we have a number of herds, a number of farmers that are, for the last number of years, our own herd included, have been doing selective dry cow therapy. And we will be nationally moving towards regulated selective dry cow therapy from next year. Nothing really to fear, but very, very heightened awareness around hygiene and proper use. But if we can avoid farmers putting antibiotics into effectively healthy udders where they don't need to, this is going to be a really big help in preventing, slowing down a potential for antimicrobial resistance. So I think it's a very, very important initiative. Other areas we're involved in is Iones, calf care. We heard one of the speakers last night talk about calves being given antibiotics when they're sick and scouring. No need if there's proper calf care. We want to move towards a national eradication program on IBR, and we think we can do that. And equally, we want to get farmers more concerned, more aware of their need to have better biosecurity. These all feed into the One Health National Action Plan, the INAP plan, and it also has relevance for ag-climatized. Healthier animals have lower carbon emissions, and I think there's a bit of work yet to do on the costings and the benefits nationally for having healthier herd, but I think it is something that we can significantly improve and add to the MAC curve, the Chagas MAC curve, in having healthier animals, and we're currently can make a 7% contribution to the climate mitigation, but we think we can go even further by having a healthier animals in future. We're recently got involved in pig health. Pigs had for a number of years a bad rap with regard to antibiotics. It was an unfair charge, but equally the pig industry is very, very biosecure, and we're now actively involved with them and very happy to be there, and we like the work that we're doing. And there are areas around salmonella, national salmonella, and other areas that we think we can help them and help the national herd through that way. We're also involved in beef health check, which particularly through parasite control. Again, more timely and proper use of parasite mitigation control methods, the timing of parasite control, the timing of dosing, the use of what to use, when to use. These are all areas that I think we can get a huge improvement on. The genetics, we're increasing evidence that there's genetic resistance to liver fluke, and can we breed animals that have resistance, that, in other words, that we don't have to dose as much or at all in some cases. So these are all areas that we think that inevitably will help as time moves on. So I'm going to set a few challenges before I come back to our own personal story. I think that as an industry, as farmers, there's a lack of awareness about the distinction between antibiotic residues and resistance, and I think we need to do some serious work there. Society definitely has a problem with its awareness around antibiotic use. Default in a lot of cases is antibiotics. I heard a well-renowned expert talked recently about the dangers of the internet purchasing of antibiotics, sharing antibiotics among people, destroying them or getting rid of them by flushing them down the toilet, and all these things. All of these things have a potential issue around antimicrobial resistance, and we have to all rise to this challenge. And how to change the behavior. We have put a lot of thought and time into the whole behavioral change piece. We use this triangle as a sort of template as to how we do it. You can see a few of the diseases mentioned that I previously mentioned. On antimicrobial resistance, we're on that bottom, the very, very bottom of that triangle. We're only at the stage of trying to create awareness, and how do we move on up? And that's, I think, a challenge for all of us. And I think hopefully out of this week, we can put some kind of mechanism in place to deal with the issues shown on this. How can we generate more knowledge around it? How can we change attitudes? And how can we shift that from the attitude and the intentions to do better things? That gap is there, and to ultimately bring behavioral change. I think we have a huge task in hand. Farmers, we're cautious by nature, we're conservative by nature, and we're a little bit adverse to change to some extent. But equally, we have shown in some of the programs that we do that when we're given the direction and we work collaboratively, we can do an awful lot. And I think that, so I'm putting the same challenge to society in general as we have risen to in some of the diseases. I'd like us to tackle some more of the ones, but look, we're making progress. And then finally, what the next steps? What should we do? I think we can be more proactive on other viral and bacterial and pathogens in our herds. I think we should be trying to be international leaders in this. It's not easy to shift. We have to bring a lot of people with us, but I think we can rise to that challenge, and it is a real challenge. But society, when it has an awful lot to contend with, and obviously COVID is a huge issue at the moment, but when you have a body as august as the UN telling us that antimicrobial resistance is potentially one of the greatest killers over the next number of years, we have a serious job to do. So we can't shy away from that. But we have a long campaign of awareness ahead, I believe. And we could start by simplifying the language. We're using too many different, diverse phrases, and we need to put a common language, make it simple, show people the difference between what we're talking about, AMU, AMR, resistance residues. They're all things that most people on this call are very much aware of and don't stop to think twice about. But you go out into the general public, or even into farmers' yards, there's a lack of an understanding about these issues. And finally, this is the little fellow that we started with at the beginning. Shortly after that first photograph that I showed you, James was diagnosed with a massive brain tumor. This is him 1 year after his first operation, when he was in remission. He had a number of serious operations. He fought an extraordinarily tough fight. And towards the end, he had a serious infection, and Mary and I stood beside a doctor telling us that he was running out of antibiotics, that if the current antibiotic didn't work for the infection that he had nothing left. He had no further, nothing further to treat the infection with. Nobody should learn about AMU in that way. So that's why I've become so passionate about it. That's why I'm prepared to talk about it here tonight. That's why I want to share the story, so that we can deal with these kind of issues. It's not what ultimately, it's not why James ultimately died, but it shortened his life. So I'm appealing to us as responsible people, and people charged with responsibility in dealing with issues like AMU. to do something meaningful, do something more than having a week-long seminar about it. And let's get real about something like this, and let's do it in the memory of wonderful little fellas like this guy. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. I suppose a very important message, and really does bring home the One Health implications on a very personal basis. And I suppose I'd like to thank you for sharing your story, and also for your talk and the contribution that you've given in the area. It's very important work, and hopefully will have the impact that you desire in getting people to take that message home. So I'd just like to thank you for that.